Python Pizza here. May I help you?
King Koopa here.
Oh, yes, sir.
I'd like the Koopa special.
Pterodactyl tail on that?
Yes. Dino, lizard, hold the mammal, no worms, and spicy.
Super Mario Brothers is a 1993 American adventure comedy film directed by Rocky Morton and Anabelle Jenkle, starring Bob Hoskins, John Leguizamo, Dennis Hopper, Samantha Mathis, Fisher Stevens, Fiona Shaw, and Richard Edson. Let's take a quick look.
Where are we? I got a feeling we're not in Brooklyn no more.
Luigi! Daisy! You better not hurt us!
They're brothers. They're plumbers.
Oh no! Mario! Luigi!
They're on the trail of a kidnapped princess and a mystical meteorite
It's incredible!
that gives anyone who possesses it the power to rule the universe.
Get me the rock! Come and get it, lizard breath!
Now, they must rescue the princess
Luigi!
Alien species escaping.
and make it safely back
Later, alligator.
to our world
Are you alright?
before time runs out.
Shoot him! Get him! Yes!
No, stop!
No, not again!
Super Mario Brothers. This ain't no game.
Welcome back to the Cult of Films. I'm your host, John, and today, once again, I have a very special guest, a returning guest as well, from the Bad Movie Night YouTube channel, Mr. Ian. Welcome back, sir.
Me?
Oh, yeah, hi,
okay.
Ian.
Oh, I was supposed to say, where's the special guest? I'm looking all over for him.
Oh,
or
you're
her.
so special. I don't care what Chris says about you. I think you're special.
Yeah, you don't want to hear the things Chris says about you.
That's fine. You're not the only, you are the only person I'm talking to tonight, but not the only thing that's keeping me company. I also have an Elysian Salute the Sun. This is a 5.2% pale ale with black lime bits in it. So it's getting a little hotter out here in the Pacific Northwest. And so I decided to grab a pale ale instead of my usual stout. Ian, are you warming up at night with something?
Yeah, I've got my co-host here, and in the times of pandemic, everything's changing. Work schedules changing, school schedules changing, everything being a mess. Really time stamping this episode for you here.
Yeah.
Going back to an old comfortable friend. Go more wintry, I guess more spring to wintry style of a beer here, but it was the very first brand of craft beer that I'd ever had. I've got from Trogs Brewing in Pennsylvania, I've got Troganator.
Ooh.
It's a Doppelbock at 8.2%. I'm staying plenty warm tonight.
Excellent. All right. Well,
So-
sir.
Going for comfort foods, comfort drinks in these difficult times, and comfort movies. Been watching a lot of old classics that I love that make me feel good. I've been watching movies like Hook.
Nice.
All-time favorite of mine, Guardians of the Galaxy, Volume 2, the superior Guardians of the Galaxy.
No argument.
Of course, Super Mario Brothers, everybody's favorite.
Of course. Well, not everyone's favorite. We're gathered here today, like I like to say, to talk about the 1993. It's stapled as a American adventure comedy film. It's a lot of things. It's dark and gritty. It's a family film. It's a kind of a video game film. There was so many moving parts to this. Wizard came out, I think, in 1989, which we've covered on the show before, and that was basically, a 90-minute Nintendo commercial. And so at that point, they're like, you know what? Super Mario came out on the Super Nintendo, and they're gearing up for N64, back in 93. So they're just like, this is the perfect time to really launch this type of franchise. And so they went for it, but I don't think that they stuck the landing like they would have hoped. Or did they?
Certainly, this was a troubled production that didn't conform to any one person's creative vision. I will say that up front. So sticking the landing's difficult to do, and you've got a lot of visions in the pot. I think the most challenging aspect of the production is they all came on to film a very particular film that was very much about the relationship between Mario and Luigi and their family legacy. And they filmed some of that stuff, and a lot of it got cut.
Right.
But like in the days and weeks leading up to actual shooting, they kind of got notes from the studio. They wanted a more fun, more child-friendly kind of a movie, and all of a sudden they had a script that no longer matched the sets that they had. And that led to conflict throughout the production of this film. So
They're hiring and firing writers like it was, going out of style, or whatever cooler reference I could have said there. But they went through so many different, like daily sometimes, script rewrites where Dennis Hopper at one point just said, I'm not even going to look. I'm just going to do my thing, and I hope I'll nail it. Like, he was there. They told him he was only supposed to be there for like 7 weeks. He wound up being on set for like 17 or something like that. So there was, a lot, and some of the actors on here, I mean, you have some real stars. You have Bob Hoskins, even though he was like the third choice. I think they wanted like DeVito. I think Tom Hanks was in the mix, but he wanted too much money. Tom Hanks was in the mix
for Luigi.
Oh, for Luigi.
Yeah, but actually my understanding is actually the studio decision not to go with him, because he was coming off of Turner and Hooch, and I forget what other comedy movie, but both of them kind of tanked at the box office, and they weren't sure that he was still going to be a box office draw, so they kind of passed on Tom Hanks, believe it or not. That's shocking when you settled for Johnny Legs in the role, but oh well.
Hey, maybe favorite Johnny Legs role though. I think he did okay.
Disagree.
Summer of Sam.
As much as I love this movie, when I think of Johnny Leguizamo, I'm thinking of Spawn, of course.
Oh, sure. Yeah. No, that's totally fine. He does have some underrated roles, but for the most part, he's kind of, I don't know. He's not my favorite. Maybe The Happening is one of my favorite roles from him.
Was he in?
Exactly.
I don't even remember him being in that.
Yeah, he was the best friend. He was the one that was doing all the math problems,
Okay, I haven't seen that one since it first came out on video, I think.
What? No.
I didn't even watch it when we did our crossover director's cut, or whatever you call that show now.
Back in the day, yeah.
When we did Shyamalama Ding Dong movies.
Your local boy, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, he was in it, and no, he was. I think he was good in this. Tom Hanks is pretty much good in anything, but was he, for a budget of $40 million, and he would have been $5 million of that? Yeah, that's what they said. He was demanding $5 million, and they hand shook on it, and then they're like, wait a minute, no, we should kind of repurpose some of this money, and I think that was a good idea. Dennis Hopper as Koopa, though, fantastic.
Oh, I mean, Dennis Hopper as anything is fantastic.
Right. Yeah.
If he offered to come over and play my dad, I'd just be like, sure, you'll fucking knock it out of the park.
Yeah, Dennis Hopper and cornrows, too. Bleached cornrows.
Oh, yeah.
It's just fantastic. And Fisher Stevens, too.
I'm curious how much of the budget went to that scene where he was kind of hitting on Daisy. And he's talking to her, and he sticks out his tongue, and he's got a lizard tongue.
Yeah.
That's a effect I'm kind of surprised they put that much effort into in 1993.
Let me tell you something, man.
I'm curious how they did that.
The effects they hold up. Like, I just watched this again today, and I think that, when they're going through the walls and they all but they did the whole, like, dusting thing, like in Infinity War. I thought it looked, like, just as good. Maybe not just as good.
I wouldn't go that far.
Yeah, okay, maybe not
very
just
good for its time.
I thought it looked really good, and it was still enjoyable. It wasn't, like, distracting where I was like, I remember vividly watching this movie as a kid, and like there's the scene kind of at the end where Koopa goes kind of full Koopa, he goes kind of T-Rex, and I was just like, for whatever reason today I was like dreading it. I was just like, oh god, here it comes, it's gonna look terrible. I'm like, no, this fucking looks great still. Like, They, the effects and the performances weren't the problems. I think it was just more of how the crew, especially the directors, why they settled on this husband and wife duo that were just trying to one up each other and were just like complete tyrants is beyond me. I don't know why they settled on Rocky Morton and Anabelle Jenkle.
Yeah, I think at one point, it was Bob Hoskins had said something about the two of them just being extremely arrogant, and like that confidence got mistaken for talent instead of just arrogance. And yeah, my understanding is they got fired right around the end of principal photography and brought someone else in to do a few reshoots, and they were completely, blocked out of the editing process. Yeah, they were apparently quite difficult to work with, but a lot of people will nitpick this movie to death. I think there's a lot to love about it. Where it fails biggest is as an adaptation, but separate from the source material it's trying to adapt and its, lack of symmetry there. Like, this movie's really fucking fun. Yeah. Like, the sets are incredible. Like, so the effects hold up really well for its time period. The actors are all pretty good. I mean, there's better acting performances out there, but like, they're fun.
It's Samantha Mathis. She plays Samantha Mathis. Like, you see you pump up the volume or this, it's like it's the same role, but
she was exactly what was needed for this role, though.
Sure, yeah. Why? Yeah. You know what always kind of confused me is why do you think they went the route of Princess Daisy instead of Princess Toadstool?
Or Peach, or for that matter?
Yeah, well, it's the same, yeah.
Yeah. My only thought is because they wanted it to be a love interest for Luigi, not for Mario. If they wanted a love interest for Mario, then you go Peach.
Sure.
And why that was, I don't know at what point they made that call that it was definitely going to be a Luigi love interest. Or maybe they wanted to save a character for the sequel.
Oh, yeah. And they sure did set it up. Yeah, we didn't even get Peach. We got Mario's love interest was Daniela, played by Dana Kaminsky. Yeah. She was like, Daniela from the block, which she was great. Like, she was like...
And given the role written...
Yeah.
You wouldn't want that to be... If you just randomly call her Peach, then...
Yeah.
That would actually be kind of annoying, because it's not at all that character, so...
See, and I would completely agree with your sentiment about where it failed was a adaptation back when I first saw this, because everyone had Mario Brothers fever back then. And so that was the thing. That was the big video game. That was the Fortnite of, the 90s, and it's just like watching it. I was just like, what the hell is happening? But watching it now, so many years later, and I guess older and more jaded or whatever, I think that it was a perfect adaptation of what they were going for. They added the things that they needed to add. Everything had that, like, it wasn't beat you over the face with, it wasn't this like candy coated Mario game, but it had all the tools. It explained why Mario jumps high with the boots. It explained bombs and bullet bills.
Explaining how things work a good way to approach a script, though, especially of something where you're adapting something or existing in a known world.
Yeah, it's showing, not telling. Not like with, it's got a little bit of voiceover from Homer Simpson in the beginning, but that's literally like 2 lines and you're done. But like, when I say like it's explaining, it's including all these things that and love from a Mario Brothers game without it just you playing a Mario Brothers game. And I appreciate that. I could see why that didn't work back then with the audience.
Or even now for a lot of people, if you're overly obsessed with how come this isn't just like the game, how come they didn't understand how to adapt this, like, sure, that's all technically correct. It's not a very good adaptation of the source material, but if you can divorce yourself from that,
right?
I think this movie is batshit crazy in the most fun kind of way.
Sure.
And I've got a lot of nostalgia for this movie. I don't remember how I reacted to it the first time I saw it. I'm fairly certain I didn't see this in theaters, only because we didn't go to the theaters much when I was a kid. Didn't have one very close by. My parents weren't necessarily movie people, but I probably saw it on video not long after it came out.
Sure.
But yeah, I've loved it for a long time. It's definitely something I keep going back to when I can find it.
Right, yeah.
Very difficult movie to find. I suspect Nintendo has made an effort to try and bury it.
It finally got a Blu-ray release. Which
Did it?
Yeah, which is quite nice. And the people that love this film absolutely love this film. They're very loyal to it. So there's actually a website, like the Super Mario Archive or Super Mario Brothers Movie Archive.com or whatever, and it has everything. It's a complete archive of all the behind the scenes, all the like anytime. I wouldn't be surprised. I might be smelling my own farts a little bit too much right now, but I wouldn't be surprised if this video, once it goes live, gets added to that, because literally any type of mention of the film, like these people that are running this are so into it, and I think they were basically the driving force of getting it finally released on Blu-ray.
That's awesome.
Yeah, before we get too much into it, what is if you could it's kind of wacky, but what is the Super Mario Brothers movie about, Ian? You think you would know. You think we wouldn't have to explain it, but
I've seen this movie at least a dozen times. Where to begin? So you've got Mario and Luigi Mario.
Right. Was that just a movie thing?
I think that was just it's supposed to be a joke, but I don't know. That didn't really work for me.
Sure.
And so they're plumbers. Already checking some good boxes here.
That's it.
And they get tangled with a woman who is involved with the mob and is wanted in another dimension by reptile people because the world split into two dimensions when the meteor struck.
Right.
And you have humanoids that have evolved from dinosaurs and humanoids that have evolved from monkeys in the two separate dimensions. And the king of the dinosaur people wants to merge the worlds to take over what is our New York and presumably beyond.
Perfect.
And so this movie, this might have been like a movie for me that, while it didn't really break ground in these certain sci-fi aspects of this movie, as a young person in the 90s, this might have been my first exposure to like theories of alternate evolution and even just the idea that evolution could have happened in a different way. And so I think this movie might have just like blown my mind a little bit when I was a little youngster,
Ian,
little 10 or 12-year-old or however old I was when I saw it.
The plot of the movie, although a little bit messy because of how many fingers were in the pot constantly, no pun intended, but how many times this thing had to evolve and devolve on a daily and weekly basis. Got it. Check off that box.
Let's end the we got it. We did it. Let's end the show.
Thank you, nice Ian. Where can everyone find you? Yeah. Although messy, it was very heady as far as what it asked its audience to, the journey that it asked its audience to go on and accept, and all these things. And that's where it kind of lost a lot of people, because you know what, I think in the beginning, when it's just Bob Hoskins and John Leguizamo being the Mario Brothers, like kind of failed plumbers, going around just trying to get a job, I think that people were still on board, because it even has that lighthearted, like dun 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 dun, like family movie, like score, like he's talking to Daisy for the first time, and he's stumbling, and it's all like very lighthearted, and bring your kids and blah blah blah, everything, just like Capricorn style, just schlock in the beginning. And then once the kidnap happens and we get to Dino Manhattan or whatever it's called, that's when it's like it goes from like Turner and Hooch to Mad Max, and that's where I think people are just like, oh shit, I'm not ready for that kind of a jump into the deep end.
I don't know. It kind of more started there, though, because you clearly have a woman on the run who's stashing a baby.
Yeah.
Feels very Batman Returns. Felt like an influence for sure.
Sure. On
this movie. So I don't know. It didn't seem. I don't know. Maybe it's just because I've seen it too many times, but that didn't seem too jarring to me. I can certainly appreciate why somebody who's played Mario games all their life, if they were just introduced to this movie now, would go, "What the? How did you get to this?"
There's that one scene where. they're meeting they're getting processed in the police station, and the chief of police is just sitting there, and for no reason at all, there's just a random like stockinged, like very sexy looking foot rubbing his face constantly. And I'm just like, wait, what? Like, and it has like that, and it has like there's that dance when they're in the club. There's obvious like strippers, which I even like dove into it. At first, they were gonna have like actual like dino strippers and stuff, and they're like, okay, this is this
that would have been awesome.
This was the line, so they still kept some of the strippers that they hired from the local, strip mall, and for a couple scenes, and then like Big Bertha, he's like digging the crystal out of her cleavage with his mouth. Like, tonally, this was this is crazy.
I don't know, man. This movie is way less upsetting than another dinosaur movie from approximately the same time period. I don't know what year, but did you ever see We're Back?
I could have sworn you were going to say Jurassic Park, because it was
no,
they came out the same year.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah,
We're
Back
just
was
as good.
Garbage. Yeah.
What?
I didn't. Okay, don't hold me to that. I got to see it again. I literally haven't seen We're Back since 1993. So
that movie's great, but we won't get into that right now. But the point is, that movie, like, if you watch it now, you're like, oh my god, they show this to children, because that movie's upsetting. There's like implied child slavery.
Oh my god.
It's kind of like there's all kinds of weird stuff on that one.
Sure. Oh, well.
Makes this movie look like a children's movie, even with the strippers and the the cleavage apple diving.
That was a very form-fitting dress. It was.
We just discovered John's type.
I like him big, red, and in spikes. But because they're like, oh, this was, think about the other dinosaur movie that came out. It's like, fuck you. This isn't a dinosaur movie. This was an action sci-fi with like comedy in it. I guess you could try to say a video game adaptation too, but this isn't even in the same type of deal as Jurassic Park.
No, there's a little bit of a difference between Steven Spielberg in his absolute fucking prime and this one random couple that had basically only done Max Headroom before this.
Yeah.
And, we're apparently psychos.
So crazy.
And, difference in studios. I think one of the reasons, in my understanding, that they were able to talk Nintendo into taking on the project is, no, really, you guys are going to want to work with a smaller studio where we can have more control over the project. So come work with us. Don't go to, one of the big studios.
Yeah, it was, Light Motive. I doubt Light Motive's even a thing anymore.
No, I don't think so, but I could be wrong.
But it was backed by Buena Vista, who is owned by Disney. I mean, for all intents and purposes, this is a Disney film.
This is going to wind up on DP at some point?
I hope so. Oh man, you know what? I didn't even check there. I'm gonna be pissed.
Yeah,
if
I
it's
should have
on
checked.
There. Damn
I
it.
just assumed it wasn't a Disney movie because I checked like every streaming service I have to find this movie. And that was like the only one. I'm like, it's definitely not Disney. I'm not even gonna check there.
Yeah, Hollywood Pictures, man. It was like, Disney had its tiers back in the day. It was like Disney, then the edgy stuff went on Touchstone, and then you got to Miramax, and then like Hollywood is like Skinamax, basically. So this was the lowest tier of the Disney, name that you could find. But like one of the greatest cameos for Lance Hendrickson at the end as the Fungus King.
The greatest cameos.
Have you not been on one of my shows? I am the Hyperbole King. So hyperbole,
Nice.
Hyperbole. This fucking beer.
But no, it is Super Mario Brothers is not on DP as of right now.
Okay.
I just
good.
checked.
Thanks for fact checking. The greatest cameo of all time, I still think, goes to Bill Murray for Zombieland.
That is the correct answer, of course.
Yes.
Mario fandom to some degree, though. Like most people I chat with are like, either they haven't seen it or they're like, what? You like that? That's such a stupid movie. And I don't know. I guess part of it is I love big, giant, expensive 90s specifically messes of a movie.
Sure.
Especially where like a lot of the production value is in the sets and the set design. So like talking about movies like this, you're talking about Tank Girl. Mm-hmm. You're talking about Babe Pig in the City. Talking about, I just saw for the first time last month Johnny Mnemonic, and I'm upset that it took me this long to check that one out.
Sure.
Just like there's just so much fun Even where they don't work is fun for me.
Yeah, and that was kind of the genesis of doing this episode was you guys over at Bad Movie Night. I think you had a Cannibal video.
Cannibal video.
They were on,
those
and you guys
boys
were talking Johnny Mnemonic, and I think you brought up a lot of parallels between that movie and this film, and
They're basically the same film.
kind of, yeah. You know what? I wasn't guessing on that specific episode for you guys, but I have to give it to Super Mario Brothers as a better, more enjoyable movie personally.
Oh, they're very different. I wouldn't even begin to compare them.
You just said they were the same movie. Damn it, Ian.
Only in that they are giant 90s big budget kind of messes story-wise.
You set me up and then you just let me drop.
I don't know. They're definitely they're definitely
Jesus.
Well, that's what they did to me on that episode, so
Fair. So take it out on me. I see how you are. Yeah.
I don't know. I would choose Mario Brothers over Johnny Mnemonic as well, but that's probably mostly nostalgia, if I'm being honest.
I don't know, man. Like I said, today's rewatch was the most fun I've had watching this movie. Really, like, truly. I think the older I get, the more I appreciate this film because movies like this don't exist anymore. Movies like this aren't made anymore because so much of the money just, instead of going to, like foam molds and like matte paintings, it's all just going to the digital thing. And I don't, I'll get off my soapbox real quick, but you could just definitely tell because this film had CG in there too. And in 1993, it had groundbreaking CG. I would say. But the fact that they gave a shit, even though it was a complete mess production-wise, they took over this, like, giant, like, industrial, like, factory in North Carolina. They made it a real-life living city. And you just don't see that anymore. It's just, like, people are just shooting against a green screen, and that's pretty much it. So this is a great throwback to those days.
I do love the sets in this, and I think Babe Pig in the City is another great example of just like, holy shit, they built all of this. That's insane.
Sure.
But I actually don't have a major gripe with CGI and using a lot of it. I think a lot of people don't realize where it's being used all the times. Like sometimes you see people like really upset about, oh, this movie's all CGI, but like there's plenty of other movies like that I just don't think people even realize how much CGI, because it's good. Like there's definitely good CGI and bad CGI.
Sure.
Just like there's good set building and bad set building.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
It's the difference between like this and like, I don't know, an Infinity War or something is the difference between like a 1970s Cougar and like a Tesla. They're both great vehicles, but they're just, there's something a little bit more tactile to a movie like this. And it's just the fact that you can't get it anymore, really. Because like you said, I think CGI is used in more ways than the general audience even realizes nowadays, to add extras. It's just so it's so good at this point that it's just used to cut corners.
It can be, but sometimes you just don't even realize how much it's being used just to make the sky look a little bit more exciting in the background, and people will never comment on it sometimes because they just don't notice. Yeah. In this film, Rocky Morton had to dump a hot pot of coffee on one of his extras to make his costume dirtier. Well, as he is happy to point out, he may not deny it, but it wasn't that hot. It wasn't as hot as people have said it was. Right. I mean, they completely lost the, like, I guess Bob Hoskins and John Leguizamo were literally taking shots of scotch in between takes. Yeah. The scene in the beginning where they're driving the van, they were pretty hammered, and you could like, now that that I did the research and I found that out, like you could see the redness in Johnny Leg's eyes. At one point, I guess he hits the brakes and the door slammed on Bob Hoskins' hand and like either broke it or sprained it or something. So he had a cast on, which you could kind of see in some of the scenes where he's like trying to hide it real quick. It was just like nightmarish what the people had to go through to make this film. Yeah. I imagine it wasn't a fun one to be on necessarily, which is a shame because it should be so much fun. Yeah. To be on a set like this. Yeah. I'm glad that you
didn't shit on this. I kind of, I cheated and I kind of knew your position because I listened to the Johnny Mnemonic podcast, and I'm like, yeah, I think he likes this film.
Yeah, I didn't know where we were going to be coming at with on this one, and I was very worried we were going to have to end our friendship tonight, depending on how this went. Because I feel quite strongly about this movie.
Hey,
I may be divorcing my wife. It's yet to be determined.
For numerous
she is
reasons.
tactfully ignoring me. She may have headphones in. I'm not sure.
Oh, God. Come to the Cult of Films where marriage ends. That's my new tagline.
Well, looking into your dreamy eyes, John, I don't know how I could stay in my marriage.
That's just something I was born with. I don't know what you want me to do. But, yeah, I don't know. Would you...
Put a Vegas showgirl in front of me, and I go weak in the knees.
Put a lizard showgirl from Dino Hatton.
Now you're talking my type.
Literally puts some connotation for lizard brains. It's very I don't know. Let's not get too political, but yeah. Would you, for people that hated this film back in the day, would you tell them to give this one another try?
Absolutely not.
Really?
Because I don't want to hear their dumb opinions.
That's fair. Yeah.
I actually listened to it was a Patron episode of a podcast I listened to where they talked about this film, and I just lost so much respect for all the people involved, because I'm like, oh, they were just all upset about like the little logical inconsistencies in the movie. It's like, can you see how imaginative this thing is?
Right, yeah.
Like, yes, it doesn't make a lot of logical sense. Don't come at me in the comments with, whoa, well, in this scene, this happened, but then in the next... No, like, yes, obviously there's plenty of flaws in the movie, but it's just so fun and imaginative.
Yeah.
I imagine, it was a very difficult movie to edit given the challenges in production and the shifts in tone and direction that they kept going for. So, I don't know, like I said, just a fun time.
It is a fun time, and it comes off now to me as way more cohesive than it should be with how crazy the behind the scenes stuff was. Because I was watching it today, just kind of like at first through my fingers, just like, oh God, what am I in for? Is this gonna be worse than I remember? And I'm like, no, this is fine. Like, this is totally, it makes sense. It has a narrative. It does its things. It has the Mario aesthetic in there with its own type of thing, this like weird, Blade Runner thing going on, and it just hits. It just hits on every cylinder, and I would recommend this. I would tell people, for someone like my age or something, our age, to, if you didn't like this at first, maybe try this again now that you're out of the Mario haze. Now that you're adult.
That's fair. I think I'm more inclined to recommend this movie to somebody who's never seen it, has no idea what they're getting into. Like, I have a coworker who has a little bit of a sheltered life, or at least when he was a kid, he had a little bit of a sheltered life. Not a lot of, like, he's seen movies, like, he's not like totally blocked off, but like hasn't seen a ton of movies. And like about every 2 years, and I just had it happen again this afternoon because I brought the movie up. I always forget he's never seen it. I'm constantly, every time I remember, I'm trying to convince him to watch it. And I just want to sit there with a bucket of popcorn, and I don't even want to watch the movie. I just want to watch him watch the movie.
Sure.
Like, how does, he's probably in his mid to upper 20s. How does somebody that age react to this movie knowing nothing about it going in?
Man. Now I'm motivated just as soon as I turn the camera off here, to like, family movie night, get in the living room, just flip it on for all of them.
I really wish I'd had a chance to share this with my 8-year-old daughter, because we've played a bit of Mario Party over the last year or two. We've got Mario Kart. She hasn't really gotten in any of the narrative Mario games yet, so she wouldn't really have too many touch points for what a Mario story should be. Not that there's a lot of story in a Mario game anyway.
Yeah.
But I would love to get a reaction. I was actually going to try and do that on Monday until I remembered it was Star Wars Day, and of course we sat down to watch a bunch of Clone Wars episodes instead.
Nice. Yeah.
But I'm gonna have to go back and play that experiment soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this movie's great. Go watch it. It's hard to find. Like you said, someone said it was streaming, or it's gonna be streaming on something. I don't know where I saw it after the fact though. It's not like right now, but I guess it's gonna be streaming on maybe like a Crackle or something. coming up here
Okay.
pretty soon.
Does
So
Crackle still exist?
yeah, Crackle still
I
exists.
didn't realize that was still around.
Yeah, just watched Jawbreaker on it the other day. It's kind of a
Oh, right
bummer
on.
because like.
You should do an episode on that.
So just keep your eyes peeled. Maybe, don't kill yourself trying to find this one, because chances are you probably won't like it. I think that we're born with some kind of weird specific gene. Like, some people are left-handed. Some people like the Mario Brothers movie. It's like
Yeah.
we're in a specific set of a group of film fans. But
Yeah. I think this movie might have been a very formative movie for me, not only in terms of like certain sci-fi concepts it might have introduced me to, because I think this movie is more sci-fi.
that's our review of the Super Mario Brothers movie. Thank you once again, Mr. Ian from Bad Movie Night, gracing us with your beautiful ponytailed presence once again on the Cult of Films. What are you up to, and where can everyone find you?
Yeah, you can follow me personally at Ian the Kilt Maker on Twitter. I did just sign up for Instagram finally.
Oof.
So, yeah, I don't know.
What are
You
you,
can follow me
12?
there, but nobody else does. So, I don't know. Don't bother.
Yeah.
I'm at, check out @_Bad Movie Night on Twitter. Check us out on YouTube over there. Do a little acting. We've got some short films up there and on Amazon Prime. And when I get off the line with you, I'm going to be actually recording some audio lines for a friend's short film. I don't know if I can talk about what that is yet, though. So, I don't know. Follow Broken Tile Films, I think, is where that's going to come out on. And eventually, maybe you'll hear my dumb voice again.
Excellent. Breaking news. You heard it here first. An Cult of Films exclusive. It should have just
But
been...
we can't talk about it.
Right, yeah. Shh. After the embargo, we'll talk about it. But you could find me on this very channel right here that you found. You could also follow the official Cult of Films Twitter handle now. It's quite literally @the Cult of Films, all lowercase. Or you could just follow me on my personal account @OrzovDunn. Until next time, what's a good Mario outro?
It's me, Ian. Something, I don't know.
What's the sound it makes when you die in a Mario game? Dun 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 dun. Right?
There you go.
Ah.
Nailed it.
Nailed it. See you later.